Good evening. I'm Robin Santiago, a lifelong West Hartford resident and a retired dentist.
Hi, and I'm Kerry Rauch. I'm also a longtime West Hartford resident, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Grassroots Jewish Women's Group.
Harry and I share a deep concern about the rise of Jew hatred that we're seeing here in West Hartford and throughout the world. And so we were fortunate to have this opportunity to share our concerns with you and some of the facts behind them. So we're really glad to have you join us for this series, Shadows of Intolerance, Local and Global Perspectives on Anti-Semitism.
Thank you to WHCI, our town's local TV channel, and the Department of Equity Advancement to help us bring this series to all of you. Today we have a very special guest who's joining us from the University of Connecticut, Dr. Radenka Maric, and she is the current president of the flagship university in our state.
Thank you, Kerry and Robin. Pleasure to be with you today.
It's really our pleasure. You know, we know how embedded UCONN is throughout our community with several branches and how involved they are in so many of our community affairs. So it's really a pleasure to have you with us. Our concerns today are centering on anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, and anti-Zionism on college campuses.
Go ahead, Robin.
It's really a pleasure to have Dr. Radenka Maric with us. She has a very interesting story. So, Dr. Maric, can we ask you to share your story from Bosnia to the United States? How did that come about?
Thank you, Robin. It's interesting, but I always say life is what you didn't have planned for. So I was born in former Yugoslavia. That country doesn't exist any longer. I was born in Jewish family. My grandparents were killed during the Second World War in 1944 on my father's side, and my grandfather on my mother's side. So I experience what the hate can do to people and what it can do to families. So I grown up in the former Yugoslavia, and in end of 1988, beginning of 90s. With my husband, I left to Japan before the Civil War. So we lived for 12 years in Japan before we moved to United States, and then live in Vancouver, Canada. And in 2010, we moved to Connecticut, where I was faculty, and I'm resident of West Hartford as well. And I enjoyed Connecticut community. So the trip was long, but I always says I'm now a Connecticut citizen because I lived so long in Connecticut. So.
What was it like on UCONN campuses prior to October 7th?
It depends really on the roles that you have and what is experience that you have. So even before October 7th, I went on the business trip with Governor Lamont and delegation from Connecticut to Israel in February of 2022 to further the states and university cooperation with the Israel innovation ecosystem. And when I came back, it was a lot of hate from the students and being against my trip to Israel and supporting partnership with Israeli universities. So at that point, I became aware that the anti-Semitism is there, that there are deeper roots, that there is no enough tolerance. And as a faculty and leader, I take a great pride in having diverse community diverse people, diverse thoughts, opportunity for the exchange of ideas. And that's when I try for the first time to really bring people to table and says, let's talk about issues and how we all perceive or receive the pain, the issues, the family experiences, the history, and how we learn from each other. So it was even before October 7th that I became aware that there are some of the challenges that we have at universities.
And so, what happened after October 7th? What was
after October 7th, we have a lot of protests. We have the Pride Rock that has been painted every night. We had a lot of hateful messages. We have really huge unsatisfaction of the communities. We have demands to stop to collaborate with Israel. We have protests, but they had been peaceful, and we permitted individuals to assemble and protest as long as they observe broadly communicated conditions and university policies. And at one point there were encampment and tents, and we asked students to remove them because we wanted to give ability to all students to access any part of the campus and collaborate. And that was before the final exams. So some students make it very clear that they don't want to move until we meet their demands, and their demands were something that as a leader of this university, I could not have conversation about those demands because they were demands like to cease collaboration with defense sector, to cease collaboration with Israel, and the protesters make clear that they had no intention to remove the tents until UCONN meets their demands, and that's when the students, we have to, the state police had to remove them.
How have your life experiences helped you handle the events on campus?
I think we all have to come from the point of the empathy and understanding and trying to bring people to have communication. We had significant support from Hillel, and the Dina is an amazing director who has the open door policy and invite any student who is curious about Jewish people, about tradition, to come and have a talk. So I think, I have a great team of people, provost, vice president for students' life and success, dean of students who had been constantly with students, my chief of staff, and trying to understand the concerns and trying to help students to focus on what we have as a diverse community. And my position as a leader of this university, that hate is unacceptable. It is not healthy. It doesn't open our minds to learn from each other, and that's what I always communicate to students. You have to understand both perspectives. You have to think about, have the empathy. You have to understand, what is the experience of another group and how they feel. And I always think we are blessed to have opportunity to live in United States of America. So I think university is place where we should learn from each other, where we should exchange the ideas, and having just one position and thinking very narrowly, and having the hate is not something that is what should be experienced at the higher education institution.
Have you seen a change this year on campus?
Yes, we had a lot of change. So we done a number of the things like we specifically worked on our policy and straightening our policy and better defining what that means. We also have fostered a culture of understanding and tolerance and having more of like town halls when people can meet and talk. We went to our students to pursue and encourage them to think critically and what civility means. We opened the new classes of Metafoya, where we address the anti-Semitism, where we address the Islamophobia or any kind of the hate that exists, and open that not only to our students but also to our faculty and staff. So there had been a lot of effort to bring people together.
What specific policies do you feel has helped UConn weather this situation? Because UConn has really done so much better than many other universities we've been reading about in the press.
It was really being among the students and saying, if you do this, you're breaking this policy. So it was constant communication and saying what is unacceptable. We encourage our students to have the free speech. We have encouraged our students to live in diverse community, but at the same time, we have to respect the space that we share and our common vision of diversity of the thoughts. And if you have one group of the students occupying the space for the long time, then the another group of students cannot enjoy that space. So communicating why something is unacceptable, that you cannot use the amplifiers because you disturb the class, you disturb the people who want to learn, identifying where are the places that you can gather, identifying what is the poster policy, where you can put the poster and how many posters can you put. So creating the space of exchange of ideas, respecting the freedom of speech, but also respecting the fact that we are all in this space and we want to enjoy this space.
So it sounds like you really enforced the policies that you had in place.
Correct.
Did these policies change, or these were basically policies that were already there, and what changed was the communication about them and the enforcement of these policies?
I think most of the policy were there. Students' code of conduct was there, flyers posting the policy, but communicating that we enforce them. And the students who don't follow the policy, here are the consequences. So it is one thing is to have the policy, but the other thing is how you implement the policies, and that requires a lot of communication.
You mentioned Adina from Hillel. What other campus organizations do you feel have been helpful for specifically Jewish students and faculty?
Dean of students had been very helpful. Anytime the students felt uncomfortable, they could share with her, and she and her staff will have conversation and take appropriate measures, as well as vice president for students' life and success. And the fact that they were all the time with students felt very comfortable that they are the right one who can address the problems that they have.
What do you see? Are there any new initiatives starting at the university to help with the anti-Semitism that we're seeing in our country?
Yeah, we have initiatives under the Vice President for the Global Affairs, fighting the global anti-Semitism, where we talk about education, we talk about the training, we talk about the classes that we provide, exchange of the students learning about policy, expanding almost like a birthright to people who are not Jewish, having opportunity to go to Israel and learn about the history. There is a lot of misconception that Jewish history in Israel exists since 1947. That is the state that occupied the Palestine. So bringing people there, bringing the speakers who are the experts in the field, who can explain 3,000 years of the history, and bringing different perspectives, bringing people from both sides who are going to tell, how they see, but providing also the learning tools and environments for people to gather and to learn is very important.
Wow. So I know there's been a lot of debate about whether anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. How has this issue been handled at UCONN?
I think there is a lot back and forth, and people are confused and they don't separate those. They put them together, but I think it is not, is it anti-Zionism or anti-Semitism? It is what is acceptable and unacceptable as a human beings. What kind of the behavior do we endorse? And for me, the hate is not acceptable. Your opinions, we can listen opinions, we can have different opinions, we can debate our opinions, we can debate our position, but at the end of the day, you cannot hate another human beings who is a part of your community because they belong to different group. Mm-hmm. So I think attacking what is behavior that is not creative, is not acceptable, and talking about that freely, not be afraid, because many leaders are afraid. We saw what happened in the Congress when people says when you put in the content, killing any group of the people, it's not acceptable. So it's regardless how you put it and how you frame it. So I think for us as a higher educational institution, we really have to talk about civility, humanity, and how we work in the same space. And that clarity was not provided at many places until it became the space that was not safe for any group.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Dr. Maric, what gave you the courage to speak out?
What gave me, a knowing that when there is a hate can escalate. Hate can lead to wars. Hate can destroy the families. Hate is never healthy for any human being. So I fully embrace that everybody has the rights to their opinion as a matter of free speech and expression. But at the end of the day, it is just not about free speech. Is another group being threatened, and what that hate and threatening can do to any group. So, I feel as somebody who is immigrant, who enjoys this country, I see the beauty of this democracy. And democracy means saying what is wrong and what is right, and being free to express that and not to be threatened by any group of the people. That's it requires the courage. But as I said, I always feel there is nothing to lose. My family suffered in Second World War. My family suffered in Civil War, and I came to this country to be a free person. So if I feel that I cannot be that free person, then my question for myself is why I'm in this country. And it is what are our values and how we feel, that this is inclusive, democratic country. And that's what I felt, that I'm free to say how I feel and how I see the things. And everything that I said is inviting people to be civilized, inviting people to understand another perspective. And I didn't support one or the other group. And, I just said you have to understand the suffering. And that was not easy to do.
Well, we certainly have a great deal of respect for you for having the courage to speak out and stand out and to express so clearly a value that we can all support, I feel. So there's a famous line from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs that says, "What starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews." But how would you respond to that line?
I think Jews, through their historic suffering, learn the value of inclusion and learn the value of survival. And for me, it is always that movie, La Vita Bella, A Life is Beautiful, that even when you are suffering, you find the beauty. And how you see that beauty, how you have the hope. And for me, the hope is not only for Jews, the hope is for everybody. So I always believe that, when Jews live by heart, by community, by love, it starts with Jews, but goes to many other people.
That's
Beautiful.
a nice, yes, really nice. Yeah. So are there other things that give you hope besides the resilience of Jews and finding beauty in life, even when things are difficult?
I always tell people to have the positive emotions, to have a love, because love is universal thing. And when you love, you spread the goodness. And we need more goodness in this world. And I always encourage people to lead by joy and love for all.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end our program today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your views.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Stay
Yeah.
strong. Talk for what is right, what is wrong. We all have to be reminded. We all have to be educated. And I commend you for your amazing work.
Oh, thank you so much. And we
Thank you.
are certainly admirers of yours.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.